You know where you are. Yes, sir.
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 314. My name is Brando. Quickly, and I'm sorry, G, you'll understand if I'm not focusing on you right now. My co-host for today, if you are watching this on Zoom.
It's absolutely fine, honestly.
G from Scotland, we'll get more into, but he's joining me today for Mr. Rick Richards, who we have on the line. Mr. Richards, Rick, thank you so much for taking some time out today.
Hey, glad to be here.
If you don't mind me asking, where are you calling from? Unless it's a secret location.
Starbucks.
Okay. That's his as specific as he wants to get. Starbucks. Oh yeah, that mom and pop shop. I gotcha.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
The one on the corner.
It doesn't matter where. I guess you are, Rick, the fact that you're here with us today, and something that I'm excited about because I never got to experience the Georgia Satellites live as a radio, DJ, having a lot of classic rock experience. I've played certainly, Keep Your Hands to Yourself so many times and countless times and part of my youth, but I never got a chance to experience.
Oh, you're the one.
I'm the one. Okay. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. But what's awesome is I'm going to kind of get to experience old school Georgia Satellites finally. So before we get into any crazy conversation, Lightning in a Bottle, the official live album, the Georgia Satellites, their only concert album, going to be coming out digitally in physical form on CD and vinyl by Cleveland International Records. The CD and digital will arrive on May 11th of next year at the double LP coming in July of next year. So are you busy? Because this has taken a long time to come out, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. It's all because of my friend in London, Mick Brown, got that all together for us.
Okay. So when did this decision, because this was recorded back in what year? 1988?
8 or 9, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure fans have wanted material from you guys for quite some time. So how come it's taken a bit to release this? Was there a lot of, bureaucratic stuff behind the scenes, or was it just, I don't know, one of those things that this happens to be the year, or next year happens to be the year where this finally comes out?
There's smatterings of live performances on some of our imports, and I think maybe even some U.S. releases, a couple of live things, but nothing that encompasses a whole show. And as far as the timing and the politics, you'll have to ask someone else about that because
okay.
I try to stay clear of the biz side of it, and so I'm kind of out of the loop on a lot of the info.
Okay, I gotcha. Because the reason is because the fans I just wanted to hear it for so long. So whatever, I guess, insight you're able to provide. Do you remember this gig since it's been so long ago? So yeah, it was 1988 in Cleveland, as I'm reading the description.
Okay, good. I vaguely remember it. I do remember that Cleveland was one of the cities that actually, played the record a lot when it first came out. I think it was Kid Leo that jumped on it real soon and started getting the buzz there, and in a couple other cities, Houston, and then it just kind of, it took off. And also, it was down in the flats, I believe, on the river or something. And I remember Scott Ian from Anthrax was there. And I'm thinking, wow, why is he here? What's he doing here, Then I realized, we're all the same, man. We all rock just because, it's different genre, but there's still an affinity. towards both kinds of music, just loud rock and stuff. So I was kind of chuffed about that, actually.
Yeah, that is cool. And you know what? Along the same line of thinking of perhaps genres that wouldn't necessarily mesh of what the Georgia Satellites were and are, and that's why you can hear you on country stations and rock stations. But sometimes you're like, if you hear the remote, like I again on the radio, I would play Georgia Satellites and the Ramones back to back, and you wouldn't necessarily think that would go together, but you and the Ramones do go together. Can you talk about that? Because your cover of the Ramones is featured on this.
Yeah, Joey was a friend of the band, and we met early on. We had the same kind of our A&R guy was really good friends with those guys, and so we became friends, and just that was an amazing combination. Exactly. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's both just hard-nosed rock and roll, club style CBGBs. We had our CBGBs here in Atlanta. It's called Hedgens. So there was an affinity between us.
Do you, since you are, you are just a rock and roll band, and maybe you get labeled differently, does it bother you, I guess, that if people maybe mislabel you as not being that kind of band, that club band, and maybe thinking that all you are is just keep your hands to yourself? Does that bother you?
No, not particularly. It didn't keep me up. I tell you, I'm just glad that through that song, people got to go a little bit deeper in our records and see that there was a bit more depth than just that song.
Yeah. Can you tell us anything about first making that song? Like, did you know it was going to be a hit when you first wrote it?
No, absolutely not. It was, and this story has been told by several artists about how at the end of the session there's a song, and so let's just do it. Let's put it on there and see what happened. And that song is the hit. It's amazing how many times I've heard that story. But yeah, that was our case too. It was just kind of an afterthought thing, and we cut it on on our first British EP. So it was on there before it was on Elektra. And so, yeah, it was just an afterthought song that was made up one night when I think our drummer was approached by his then ex-girlfriend saying, "Don't talk to me, leave me alone, and keep your hands to yourself." And I think he told that to Dan and us, and we were all sitting around with Dan, and the light bulb went off, I guess. Yeah. Oh, what happened to that chick? But thanks.
And you're right. I have heard that story. What is it? What is it about the last song added to an album that you hear that, a lot of famous artists about this legendary song that was almost an afterthought. It almost didn't make the album.
Exactly. That's a phenomenon I really can't put my finger on. It's just kind of kismet. It just happens, I suppose.
Yeah, as long as it does. So as long as it does.
Yeah, right.
How do you feel about the Georgia Satellites legacy now? Because it's cool that you just had an article come out in Rolling Stone. People care. They want to have this lightning in a bottle, very appropriately titled, to hear this band kind of young. Did you ever imagine all these years later you would be talking about this band that actually it wasn't Georgia Satellites when it first started out, right? It was something Satellites. It was
Keith and the Satellites, Keith Christopher.
Right. So
who
did you
the bassist he was in the band, and this is strange. So we're playing our normal weekly gig at Hedgens, which was the dive bar I spoke of earlier. And we were chatting. Keith said, "I'm going to go to England with Lori Lee tomorrow, so I'm not going to be able to make the gig tomorrow night." We went, "Yeah, sure." And come gig time, no Keith, he doesn't show up. So first person I thought of was Rick Price. So Rick came down, and he was with us ever since. And ironically, the chick Lori Lee, they call her a chick, with the chick then. She's my wife now. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
very incestuous business.
Well, I mean, Mazel Tov on being married this long and having a relationship go this long. That's awesome.
Yeah, right.
What are you looking forward to? I guess whether it's fans old or new, or is there something that you're excited for this live experience to come out for people either again, a young fan, an old fan, you personally, what's the most exciting thing you're looking forward to with this release?
Well, just that people are going to get to hear the real kind of down and dirty rock and roll scenario that we provided that night, and that was kind of our forte. I mean, we're pretty good in the studio, but live we didn't hold back very much, and the set list was never the same night after night. It always changed, so there was always something going on, something new, and we were in a pretty good spot at that time too, so we're firing on all cylinders.
Awesome. And just again to have that time capsule is special, and I'm glad that it's coming out. And you mentioned a phrase, and that's part of the reason why I have G here. And if you were on Zoom, you would see his wall of guitars behind me, because I'm not a musician.
I already hate him. Just kidding, Jay. Come on.
Okay. Hey, I'll quite happily take one down and play your tune, Rick. It's fine.
Well,
yeah, I know you gotta have a guitar, man.
Yeah.
G's got the talent, but that's why I went into radio. But the reason why I wanted him here, because in case if we got into any tech talk, he would be able to help me out with that, because I can't even play I can't even play this, the triangle. So that's whatever. But you mentioned the phrase "down and dirt."
But
okay,
you can play the radio now. Come on.
that is true. That's a good point. All right, you're right, Rick. You're right, Rick Richards. But you mentioned the phrase I wanted to bring up is the down and dirty rock. And if you notice the name of the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, and that's where I look at and talk to people with the 6 degrees of G&R Bacon, and one of our favorite names that comes up here. And actually, G from Scotland, he made a documentary. It's almost 2 hours, very well done documentary on Izzy Stradlin, the down and dirty rocker.
Oh man!
So yeah, I mean, if you have time, I highly suggest you watch it. Alan Niven said, and I quote, former manager of Alan Niven and Great White said, "Pretty good for scavenging." So that right, G.
Yeah, it's
right there, buddy. That guy.
So
I love that guy. He was so British. You need to take that however you want.
That's funny. So, if we can ask you some questions, I guess, about because it's cool, because you're kind of in that vein of just kind of being mysterious, and we don't know the entire history. And I think that's kind of why we love you as a fan, and we look to your guitar playing for messages, almost to get really romanticized with it. But I have some other in addition to G, I have other fans who just send in questions. So I want to make sure I credit it, because we'll ask you about Izzy, of course. So this is from John Bryan from Florida. So can you just tell me the story about how you initially hooked up with Izzy Stradlin? That apparently Izzy listened to "Keep Your Hands to Yourself" and during a recording of Appetite. Is that true? Anything to that story, or what is the story?
Yeah, I think it was. They played on the bus a little bit, on the tour bus. I think they did. I met him here in Atlanta when they were on tour with Motley. That's where we first met. And then met him again when we were in California at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano. And I think that's when he was sort of removed himself from the band. And I'm not really sure if he was shopping around for guitar players or not, but he was there and he stayed the whole night, chatted and talked and all that. And then Jimmy Ashurst called about a few months later, the bassist for the Ju Ju Hounds, Jimmy Ashurst from the Broken Homes, called and asked if I would come out and, do the studio thing. And next thing I knew, I'm in the band. So it was really cool. It was But that whole first album is all just about first and second takes. Well, not first, but the second to fifth takes. It's all just like right from the studio. And that's what I really dug about it. Very reminiscent of the way we operated in the studio. And we just struck up, we had a common denominator. We both loved the same kind of music. And plus, I was a big fan of his, blah, blah. And we clicked. And it was one of the best things I've had the pleasure of doing. I'm really proud of the first Ju Ju Hounds album. I think it really filled a niche at the time, but I think it was kind of overlooked to a degree by a lot of people. So, yeah.
I agree. It is overlooked. And we've had Jimmy on the podcast, actually, who's just a awesome, awesome dude. And
yeah, he's my boy.
He mentioned something, actually, and I was wondering if you can help complete the story that when you guys had gone down to the islands in 1993 and there was some material that was being recorded, and then Izzy left, and then you had to do shows without Izzy. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yes.
So is there more to that?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
I think we ended the tour in, I believe it was Australia, and came back and he wasn't feeling it, at the time. So he was going to lay low for a bit. So Jimmy and I and Chalo Quintana, the magnificent drummer from the Ju Ju Hounds, and one hell of a guy. Yeah, man. Yeah. He was the glue that really hung everything together. He was killer. So anyway, yeah, Jimmy and Chalo and I got an offer from Chris Robinson to go out on some of their makeup dates in the North Midwest and Canada. So we ship, yeah, why not? So we're all sitting around with Chris and Mark, and we got to think of a name, man. Chris said, I got a name. Okay, the Magical Nose Goblins. So we said, okay, that's it. So he gets on the Black Crows with the Magical Nose Goblins. So yeah, we did about, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 shows, and we all traveled on their bus. So it's like I just sleep in the aisle, it was brilliant. It was so much fun, man. It was a riot.
And for me, I guess being a 90s kid, Magical Nose Goblins makes me think of Ren and Stimpy. I don't know if that was
That's where it came from, yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Yeah, G.
If I can ask Rick, I've always wondered about the period where you joined the Ju Ju Hounds, and I've always wondered what it's like as a musician to be contacted by another musician to be a part of their band. And there must be I could imagine on a professional sense that you want to jump on board. But was there ever a thought where you just thought, why me? Why did they come to me, sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I remember vividly the day I got that call. It was like, for the next month I was walking on air. It was brilliant. And the why me thing does, but being in the music and being in bands and being around musicians, it's just like what we spoke of before about the serendipity thing of having an afterthought song go big. It's the same thing with who you end up playing with sometimes. It just happens, and fortunately for me, that was one of those times.
Cool. Was it different, like a different guitar partnership than what you had with Dan in the Satellites? Is there any sorry, on you go.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if there was any type of differences between Izzy and Dan, because you said earlier on about clicking with Izzy, and I think it has to be an either you do click or you don't click to be able to write together.
Yeah. Yep. You have to have the yin yang, thing. The good, the bad, and the black, the white. It's kind of the polar opposites attract on to a degree in songwriting.
Yeah.
As far as guitar playing goes, it was kind of not being, in an unfamiliar territory because, Dan was a great rhythm player, but he played a bit more lead than Izzy did.
Right.
So Izzy's a great rhythm player. So it made my job, simple. Basically, just getting the groove, and we had the bass and drums to put it there, man. So yeah.
Yeah, cool, man.
Right on. I like that. What was you mentioned that bonding over Izzy with certain music? I'm just curious what bands specifically you bonded with him over, and just to let us know what some of your influences are within that question, of course.
Well, Izzy, he's a bit younger than me, so I go way back. But the things we did have in common were, the Ramones, of course, the Dolls, some of Izzy's punk stuff. It was so cool to play on a record with, Mikey Dread. Izzy was really into reggae, and that really opened my eyes a lot. So, I loved her. I've been a fan forever, and I finally get to play it with a good band, and so there's that. Yeah. Other things, I don't know.
What about, because you've holding this Georgia satellite up, use the pun, up high all these years, but you've dealt with personnel changes. And that's something that's obviously synonymous with Guns N' Roses before, since Izzy left. But at that time, I guess with dealing with band drama and your the bands that you created, him GNR, you with Georgia, is that something else you bonded? Did you find yourselves kind of venting about band stuff, what you dealt with your other bands? Kind of almost like a, here's what my ex-boyfriend used to do kind of situation. Did that happen?
That's a good one. Yeah, we touch on that, but I didn't really pick his brain about the workings of GNR. But he would offer up some information here and there. Nothing surprising, really. I think it's same thing you read about, basically.
Right on.
And he knew that we both had a similar scenario as far as leaving a band or the band breaking up, or But no, that wasn't really a topic of discussion very much.
So it was clearly, that's why I think that first record, the records were so good that you meant with the just one or two takes, and it's about the music and just performing, and not about all the extra stuff going on. But let me ask then, since you were, big at that time, were you aware of? I guess you were obviously aware of Guns N' Roses, but what was your perception of this band from LA all of a sudden breaking through, and it's different than the hair metal scene? What was your perspective of Guns N' Roses at that time? And did you get a chance to see them too? I was curious if you did back then.
Yeah, I saw them when I met them first, opening for Motley Crue. That's when I first saw them. Yeah, that first record, I was a fan from the minute the needle went down on it. Because of what was happening in LA at that time, to me, it just wasn't my cup of tea, if you know what I mean. The whole I call it pseudo glam metal, but whatever. They were a breath of fresh air. They were more akin to, say, Aerosmith, or even further back, MC5 and all those great rock and roll bands. A lot of it had to do with Slash's guitar playing. Slash came cut from the same cloth as, say, Joe Perry, perhaps, guys who are based in the blues, not too fancy, but make a lot of sense. And, I think that guitar and the interplay between Slash and Izzy on those records and the songwriting was just one of those moments.
Nice. All right, so I got a couple other questions, and maybe G, you can help me out with this one because one of them is technical. This is from Izzy Dutch, not the Izzy, but Izzy Dutch on Twitter. Favorite guitar and amp at the moment, and you spend a lot of time working out your parts and solos. So he kind of wants to know what your process is currently like with recording and what you're currently using.
Yeah, I'm using predominantly right now. I have a guitar made by Ted Newman Jones. He was the Austin luthier that got his bones working for Keith Richards back before there was the term guitar technician didn't even exist. I think he might have been the first guy to have that moniker. So yeah, and also the 57 Les Paul Jr. still in the arsenal. The Dan Armstrong Ampeg loose side, of course, is the slide go-to. And I got a 58 special that's I use a bit, and a Les Paul that Izzy gave me. As far as amps go, man, I bounce around a lot, but right now I got this killer AC30, but I'm still like a high watt guy and a Marshall guy. I think high watts were my favorite for all the live stuff we did. They just had that extra, go to 11 thing.
Yeah, you need to go to 11. This is from
always 11.
You're right.
This is both to you, G, and Rick. During the pandemic, my fiance, I made sure she watched it. She had never seen Spinal Tap until this past summer.
Wow.
I educated her.
Yeah.
It had to happen before we got married. That was just a deal breaker.
Well, that was the same with my wife as well. Last year we watched Spinal Tap together. Her first time, my second.
Look at that. That's why we bond.
Yeah.
And G.
Yes.
G.
Yes, my friend.
Okay, you like this. Our road manager, tour manager, stage manager, guy that got us the deal, Kevin Jennings, he's a Brit. And when Spinal Tap came out, like he walked out, like the first 20 minutes. So I said, why did you walk out? He goes, it looked like they were making fun of Quo. And this guy's the biggest Quo fan. And, he took it personally, man. Like, don't fuck with the Quo, okay? I said, dude, it's not.
You never fuck with the Quo.
Come on. You know Quo fans, right?
Oh yeah, they're abundant, I think.
Yeah, my brother's a big Quo fan, so he would probably react the same.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I've been a Quo fan since like 74. I mean, the first time they came to the States, they played here. It was during the Pile Driver tour. And man, I'd never seen anything like that. It was like a tight running V8 motor, hitting on all cylinders, going down the straightaway. It was so good, and I was a fan ever since. Brilliant.
Right on. And obviously you have a lot of your fans listening to this episode, and hence why we got so many questions, why we have a guest co-host. So to go along with this, I want to do them right. Izzy Dutch on Twitter. What's the status of your solo album? When are we going to be hearing more of you?
I'm kind of right now recovering from some carpal tunnel surgery I had last week.
Sorry to hear that.
And throughout the pandemic, there was a definite lull in my household. So I'm just waiting around to get the chops back and then get back in the studio. And I'm thinking I got some stuff I need to release, but I'll get on that.
Okay, that's cool. And obviously, health is most important. Get on the mend. Because the reason why I ask this and why I'm kind of building momentum, so to speak, with Izzy's questions, and this is kind of the $1 million question people want to know. Are you still in contact with Izzy? They were wondering if you're recording with him. Is there anything, I guess, you can tell us, maybe why there hasn't been a release of the Ju Ju Hounds? Just anything in that realm they were able to update us on, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, not much to report. I spoke to Izzy about 8 months ago, and he was in Colorado. He riding out the pandemic out there, and we chatted. He, it's always, well, let's get together, and he goes, okay. So we're just, he's a hard man to track down sometimes. He marches to his own drum, to say the least, right? So you never know where he's at or what he's doing, but he keeps busy, man. He keeps traveling, and I think he's into Baja racing. He's into art. He's a painter. He, I think he surfs still, perhaps. And he's a California man.
Okay.
He's doing good. He's doing fine.
That's, again, just like with you, that's the most important thing. Because fans just want, just like with the Georgia Satellites, where we're glad to get this time capsule of a record and performance, to hear it, and that's what has been sitting around. I'm just to use a phrase loosely, sitting around. But fans also want to know if the same thing is with the Ju Ju Hounds, if there's anything unreleased, anything unfinished from that era that could possibly see the light of day if you and Izzy do, in fact, hang out again.
That's a good question. There is stuff out there in the can somewhere. There's a lot of stuff, I think. And, maybe, next time I speak to him, maybe I could, rattle his cage on something like that. He's in full control of all that stuff.
Yes, he is.
So, it's his ball.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some really cool stuff that never made it out, I think. We spent a lot of time in the studio in many different studios. So there's stuff out there. I like it to see the light of day.
Very cool. All right. That's a really positive response. G, do you have any, while we have Rick here, any questions, especially since you are, you preach his whole catalog? Is there any like song specific questions even that you have?
Yeah. In the spirit of the upcoming release for the Satellites, I'm just wondering if you have a Ju Ju Hounds concert in mind that you feel would be like a great live release.
Hey man, funny you should ask. The Barrowlands.
You know something? I was actually going to try and get out to Glasgow to take pictures of the Barrowlands for this episode.
Wow.
But we just recently had the climate gathering in Glasgow, and nobody could move anywhere, and the trains were all off. So that's really cool that you say that, and maybe one time I'll fire out and get some pictures of the place. But what makes that?
Hey, that would be so cool. Yeah.
What makes that stand out in your mind?
Well, the fucking crowd at first, and I just remember everybody being really happy at the end of the show. Everybody, so in the band, I mean, and just that crowd, man, it was so cool.
Yeah, a Scottish crowd.
And
is a
the other one would be, that's a great bar. The other one, I think, would be Town and Country in London. We did a spot-on show there, too. Same tour, of course. But just something about you guys, you UK cats, that know what they like, and by God, they're going to show you.
When you, to bring it back, because, we can keep asking you Izzy Stradlin questions. Hopefully one day we get to ask him the man directly, but I mean, if the guy that worked with him all these years can't, can barely track him down, what chance do we got? But I want to, of course, keep talking about the Satellites a little bit. Anything surprise you, I guess? Did you go back and re-listen to this album and any fun memories come up? I remember this song, or I remember how I was feeling when I played this. Any special memories come up putting this together?
No, I haven't really heard the whole thing.
Okay.
But no, so I couldn't really. I'll have to listen to it, I guess.
Oh.
It's really tough. It's really tough for me. It's really tough for me to listen to my own stuff sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
The little I get a little bit uneasy about it, and you're always thinking, why did I do that? And that's there forever. And so, it's just uncomfortable sometimes. Maybe have a couple of wines and listen to it.
It makes me feel better when someone like you, as accomplished as you and respected as you say that, because I'm the same way. I think more people need to understand that, if you may work hard, you may be a professional, and it's the best you can, but to second guess yourself, that's normal. I think that this is a normal thing.
Totally normal.
Yeah.
It's totally normal.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there's always, you can always do. That's why being an actor to me would be terrifying.
Yeah, right.
To see yourself, that large on the screen, and that. Ugh. I'm kind of getting butterflies now just thinking about it.
All right, so now I know why we did this.
Awful stage fright.
All right. Well, now I know why we did this on the phone, you and I, and no Zoom for you, for Rick Richards. Okay, I got it.
I'm not a Zoomer.
I'm not a Zoomer.
I'm a boomer, not a Zoomer.
Oh man, you got to see. If anything, if you're not going to put out more, if it's going to be a bit from more music, maybe you should put out like little sayings and mottos, like Rickisms or something like that.
Rickisms.
Yep.
Like too old to cut the mustard, but I can still lick the jar.
I don't even know how to process that right now.
Right?
Oh, I love it. Rick, this was a lot of fun. Before we go, I want to make sure I acknowledge, and he reached out. I think it's a he. It's on this Twitter machine. People, you never know who is what. But Izzy from Argentina, again, not Izzy, but just a fan site, said, I wanted, there's a lot of fans of your music and of you, and they want to hear it. So I always offer people, like, hey, if you get me a guest, if you get me someone that we all want to hear from, you can be rewarded with this radio experience. I'm not above that. It's I don't want to take all the glory. So I know this is to look forward to, but after you get some rest, anything in the future? Do you want to play live shows? Is that something you have on the horizon? You're on your wish list, I guess?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time playing at this point, because of the hand thing. But I'm on the mend, mending quite nicely, and and I'll be out there.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see you out and about, Rick. This was a pleasure. G, I mean, if you have any questions, I don't want to cut you off before I
the only final thing I've got is the Pass Me By cover that's made it onto this upcoming release. Now, I do remember reading something back in the day, but it's really hazy in my memory. Was this an impromptu tune that you once played live? Like, did you start playing the riff to Don't Pass Me By, and then the rest of the band?
Oh. Yes.
Started playing it. Yeah.
That's true, man.
Yeah, that's really cool, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those afterthought things. We were just tuning or something, and I started that riff. And they all look at me and said, trust me on this one. And so I just sang the first verse unaccompanied, and then everybody got the gist of it and came in like a powerhouse. And then it was good, man. We did a lot. It was a good song.
Yeah, that's cool. And something just to add on, sorry, John, I'll just add this on as well. The cover that you did with Izzy on 117 Degrees, Memphis, Tennessee, it kind of gives me the vibe from the Don't Pass Me By cover as well. Did it kind of come along the same way?
Yeah.
Jamming with Izzy.
God, I'll tell you what a great moment that was. We cut that just jamming around, but it was at Wessex Studios with Bill Price, in London, where Sex Pistols, Mott the Hoople, Clash recorded. So we were kind of in that vibe, I think, at that moment. Plus, we've been doing Memphis and the Satellites, kind of the a cross between the Johnny Rivers version and the Faces version. So Izzy knew about that. So I think he started it off really fast. And I didn't, same with, it was almost the same scenario as Don't Pass Me By, except he started,
Yeah.
So jumped in and I did the harmonies on that. I think the harmony theme came out pretty good, man. So I really like that version.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just knocking around.
It just seems like all the best stuff just happens by knocking around, you know?
Well, that's what happens when you're not prepared.
That is very true. I know what you mean exactly. Oh man, Rick, again, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much. We both were excited to hear from you. I know my listeners were. So this was
Absolutely.
You were a name that I get to cross off my interview bucket list. So I hope to have you back on again, brother. And I hope you feel much better. Just take it easy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Good.
Okay.
Rick,
hey,
it's
been a pleasure, man.
Cool. And G, I'm sorry.
Hi, G.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Rick. You've been a part of my life musically for the better part of my life, and I really appreciate it.
Well,
mate. I hope you get well soon as well.
I hope we can have a beer. Yeah. I hope we can have a beer sometime together.
Hey, I would love that.
Okay.
I'd love that.
All right.
And yeah,
chops away, lad. Chops away.
With the beer in person.
Chops away.
It won't
Absolutely.
be the weird Zoom lag either. So you guys will have a fluent conversation. Thank
Zoom
you,
lag.
Rick.
A great name for a band. Great name for a band, Zoom lag.
Okay. That's true. Zoom lag. See, it's another Rickism. I love it.
It'd be like a Hawkwind type group.
Yeah, Hawkwind. Okay. All right.
Man.
You take care. That was cool. I felt like we could have gone a longer time, but as soon as he's said he's, he had surgery, and I forgot. I thought he had I thought he went to the dentist. I thought that's why we had to reschedule. And he sounded good. I'm like, oh, he's fine. But I'm like, oh no, he sounds like he's out and about. I want to, he deserves to relax. He deserves.
Absolutely. And so he's invited me out for a drink. So, I better just catch a plane ticket.
Do they? What would they say in Scotland? I'm going out for a pint. Like, what do you?
A pint.
Oh, nice.
We're away for a pint, mate.
Like Shaun of the Dead. That's how I know.
Oh yeah.
Kind of.
Probably 10 times darker.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, because I know you've done so much research, and I'm glad that you've had no more issues with your Dust and Bones documentary that's on YouTube. I know you had to deal with the normal stuff that, the copyright things that you have to, when you put up a project online of that magnitude, it's difficult when you're doing it by yourself. But how many views does it have now? It's been up for a long time.
I think it's 155,000 views. I think.
Nice.
Could be more than that. But yeah, it was a nice experience. And even going through the copyright wrangle, that was an experience as well. And I was able to speak with people within the RIAA and even the UMG. So now I have a better understanding of how this all works. And there's a few things I'll keep under my cap for the now.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I just felt bad at the time. If people don't know what I'm talking about, do you remember what episode number it was? I'm surprised that sometimes guests know what episode number they were on.
203.
See, look at that. Brilliant. So if you want to go back and listen to episode number 203, I don't know. I look on Twitter and on the internet for Guns N' Roses stuff. So I could see this random dude from Scotland making an Izzy Stradlin documentary. And I'm like, I'm a random dude doing a Guns N' Roses podcast. So let's make an episode together. And since then, if you're watching on Zoom, he has made the logo, our new logo, the one that's behind me right now is on my Zoom virtual background. Some of the more intricate YouTube videos we have with the more graphic stuff, that's Mr. G over here doing it. I just have I've learned a little bit. I just have the very basic video editing program on. So if you can see pictures slapped up with very, 8-bit looking, Nintendo graphics, that's what I have on my Dell laptop. But G is the one that, he made the best of 2020 for me, slapped that together. So we've been communicating back and forth for quite some time, and I appreciate what he does for, Ayewis Life, is his documentary and all the. I mean, if you go to YouTube, look up Dust and Bones if you haven't looked at it already, watched it already, and the comments are so overwhelmingly positive. It is just, it's absurd to use a Guns N' Roses word. It really is. So I mean,
Yeah,
congratulations. I
it
mean,
is. Well, thank you. And it's overwhelming because I haven't really done anything in my life of note like that. And even doing the documentary, it was just something fun to do, something to fill the time during lockdown. And then it was just, why not make it into something that people get excited about? And it's extremely overwhelming to see the support that I've had and it continues to have. And I'm glad people are taking it the right way. Majority of the people are taking it the right way. It is what it is. I'm not a documentary maker. This was my first time trying to do something, and I think it worked out okay.
I think I did. I being honest, I think I said this to you, whether it was on the air or off the air. I thought I was gonna watch maybe 5-10 minutes of it, get the gist, and just talk to you. I found myself watching the whole thing, which is like over 2 hours. And I think because it is well done and unique, because yeah, documentaries are hot. Whether you're so many on Netflix and so many different ways to do documentaries, and especially to do one when you don't have guests and narration specifically for it, and the scarcity of Izzy Stradlin information out there. It's
Yeah.
I think it's kind of almost the same. What about I didn't think Guns N' Roses podcast would be anything, but there's just there's Guns N' Roses info out there, but it's all the same info. It's all the sensationalistic info. They're not the stories that I get on this podcast from the people who were there. And it's the same thing with Izzy. It's like why talking to Rick today, people were excited. Yes, there were people like, oh, I loved him in the Georgia Satellites, but obviously so many Izzy questions because people want to know. And I appreciate Rick didn't seem bothered by that at all. You never know with sometimes with people like, oh, they only want to talk to me to talk about this person, kind of thing. Never got that vibe from him at all. So it's just super, super cool. And yeah, it's good to know Izzy, as of 8 months ago, was somewhere.
Yes, Colorado, brilliant.
Oh yeah. So now all these Izzy sleuths. Let's go to Colorado. And before I forget, I want to give a shout out to look, whatever I could do like I did for you, like what I did. It's not like I have a major platform, but
No, it was.
but get the word out. Like I want people to help me get I say it every podcast. If you could tell one friend about this podcast, if there's one episode that you like, one guest, tell a friend. Like that's the level I'm at. Same thing with you with the documentary. And it's the same thing with with Izzy. It's just like I don't know. It's spreading. It's the same thing with Izzy. So it's there are fans out there that need help. So there's no Izzy Stradlin podcast yet specific. That might be too hard. But there's the Izzy concert fan petition. So if more people can sign it, maybe who knows if it gets back to Izzy. Crazier things have happened. So
Absolutely.
I think you can just look. I think it's just flat out Izzy concert petition on. I think they have a Facebook and Instagram, and they sent in some of the questions about, what happened when Izzy kind of bailed on them. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget, so I don't forget Izzy in Argentina for setting up this interview.
Yeah, he's a good man.
Oh, okay. So it is a man. I have no idea. So
Oh gosh, sorry.
I have
I
no
just
idea.
assumed.
Okay. I have no idea. It's like with you. All I got was G when you were talking to you. I'm like, do I call you G? But that's what's been great with doing this podcast. I just meet random randos, but not in the creepy way. It's all been just Guns N' Roses randos help me out. So without you, Izzy, in Argentina, this episode would not have happened. So thanks. And G is, if you're watching this on Zoom, he's the one that made it look all cool and beautiful because I I had a setup. I was actually talking about this. We were with Rick before we started recording. I'm glad I did because the setup, being at home, feeling my quarantine still. You never know if things are going to go wrong. But I was able to test this out. You being on Zoom, him being on the phone, because yesterday I spent 2 hours on the phone with Michael Imperioli of The Sopranos as he's selling his book, The Sopranos book, just like Rick is promoting the Satellites record. So it's just I was able to test it all yesterday, and it was so funny. Oh yeah, Rick up, and he starts quoting stuff from The Sopranos right away, and I didn't want to get off on a Sopranos tangent before the episode. So, anyway, I thought people might find that funny as well. But I hope you had fun, G. As I tell everybody, by the way, who does these podcasts with me, always you cut me off if I'm talking too much. Just be yourself. I know it's nerve wracking if you've never done this before. I know it's kind of hard when you're cutting each other off and when to pull back, when to talk. If you've never done this before, I know there's a lot. So I think sometimes people need to understand that's why I talk a lot sometimes to kind of set the mood and calm people down. But believe it or not, I do not like the sound of my own voice. I only talk a
Same.
lot.
Yeah.
But you're not in my profession. I should like my voice. But to me, in my head, I sound like Fran Drescher's nephew. Mr. Sheffield. Like I just sound like a stereotype. But no.
And I
know,
in my
people
head, I
what do
sound like Shrek in my head.
Yeah.
I really hope I don't.
God, now I can't get it out of my head. Okay, great. You've ruined me. Do you hate? Oh God, do you hate like us Americans for Shrek? Now we've every Scottish person say, oh well, we got Groundskeeper Willie. We got a few. Is he okay? Is he a good stereotype, by the way? Groundskeeper Willie.
Yeah, they're all good stereotypes. Groundskeeper Willie is it's a great one. But I can't make up my mind if it's an American doing a Scottish accent or if it's actually a Scot doing it.
Groundskeeper Willie, I think it's isn't it Hank Azaria doing it?
Is it?
It's one of the main. It's one of the main. It's Hank Azaria, or it might have been Dan Casta. I can never pronounce his last name. The guy who does Homer. I think it's one of the main people. So it's not a Scottish person.
Right.
It might. As a
I'll
Simpsons,
have a wee check.
shame on me, because I've always said if I wasn't doing a Guns N' Roses podcast, I could do a Simpsons podcast. There was a time, Guns N' Roses pun intended, that I could quote Simpsons regularly and anything. Groundskeeper, I could spell. This is why I need a producer. Simpsons. This is great radio, by the way. Voice. And yeah, it is Dan and Castellaneta. So the guy did Homer and Krusty and Abe Simpson. So yeah, Dan, good job. All right. And by the way, this is a nice little segue to wrap up this episode. Something I think you'll appreciate, G. So I obviously doing this from home. I have a virtual background, a minimal production value. I mean, well, I don't want to say minimal. I do have a radio job. I do have somewhat of a good setup. Point being, G here, I do this still for the love of the game. I'm not doing this. Yes, I have a job, a radio job, but this podcast is not a part of it technically. It's kind of just supplementary to it, and they intertwine sometimes. I don't get paid for it. Now that I get now some chump change off of YouTube, which is kind of cool, I guess. G, same thing. He does it for the love of the game. That's why he made the Izzy documentary. So, and I barely mentioned this, that I do have a Patreon. I barely mentioned this, that I do sell T-shirts and merch. So if you want to go to Redbubble, I have shirts and mugs and anything that you could think of, this logo that G made, slapped on, Redbubble could do for you, and Patreon if you want to donate to this cause. The reason being, it's not even for me. I don't care about the money. I'm a very minimalistic person. See this shirt I'm wearing, by the way? These are like the things I buy. I bought a cat sweater with all horror icons. So there's a cat as like Freddy Krueger, there's a cat as Jason. This is what I spend my money on. But what I would like to do is if I got T-shirt money, if I got Patreon money, is to be able to pay people like G for the hard work he does on my podcast sometimes. To be able to pay, maybe I can get some hotshot millennial intern to cut out more videos and put them up on YouTube where I'm just, if I'm too busy or doing stuff. I want to be able to develop a team or to maybe to have this show look better, get a better camera or something. These are things, if you want to help out with, it's there. But I wanted to bring G on just, if anything, more than anything, because as appreciation for all you've done for me and what you've done for, you know, the Izzy Stradlin fans that killed a good 2 hours for people when they had nothing going on in the pandemic, which was a big thing. It really was. It sounds silly, but I think people, their perspectives changed a lot in the pandemic and realizing,
Yeah.
you know, how to spend their time, you know. So that's my whole. I'll get off my soapbox couch now.
Well, thanks for saying all that, Brando. It's you're too kind. It's really nice to hear. And this has been a fantastic experience, one that I'll never forget. So thank you.
Awesome, and that's what I like to provide. So I've had guests, you know, listeners come on to interview Tommy Stinson. What's the guy? Why am I forgetting his name from the Black Crowes? The drummer, the former drummer. I'm completely forgetting, even though I've interviewed him before. Steve Gorman. Thank you, man. It's I'm getting old. That's what it is. I'm getting old. Steve Gorman. I've had co-hosts for different guests, and also, as you saw from this episode, chime in on social media. I will get your question answered. So if you want to participate, not monetarily, but just support, just follow on Facebook, social media, new Twitter at the AFD podcast. So that's how you find out. That's how people knew about Richards coming on, and that's how they got their questions answered. That's how that happened. So that's how the conversation continues in between the broadcasts. Okay, that sound good? I think that's easy enough to follow, right? I think so.
Absolutely.
As far as the next episode, actually, I think I have one guest. I can say it's going to be a short interview. I just bring up the email because I think I just got it confirmed, and I just got sent his book. Jesse Drayton, who played guitar with Duff on his new album, Tenderness.
Oh, nice.
Brilliant. So yeah, so it's gonna be. See, these are like I get these emails about people, you know, if they're promoting stuff. Country rock guitarist Jesse Dayton tells all about working with Johnny Cash, Glenn Campbell, Willie Nelson, and Rob Zombie. So he has a new book coming out, and obviously I'm going to ask him about working with Duff, and that's where it comes in. Like that comes in for like my job, and it's my job is to sometimes either put on that tour. I'm not this time, but Jesse in like 2 hours. My role would be to connect them to different stations, or since my boss and they all know about this podcast, my boss, when he sends me that email, he talks about Guns N' Roses. How's a 9:40 time slot? Sure, that sounds good. So sometimes
Nice.
that's how it works. And other times I have to get Izzy from Argentina to get my guest. You never know. You just never know with this podcast. So that's why just keep following. And when are you going to see the next episode? Oh, before I stop, is there anything you want to promote? Sorry. Any documentaries on Ayewis life or T?
There's nothing right now. I'm pretty busy in the background, so there's a few things circulating that might come to something, but I'm just not that passionate about a few things, so I just don't want to do things for the sake of doing it.
Yeah,
So,
I get that.
I guess it will just come out the blue, just like this Rick Richards interview.
Yeah,
Something will happen.
yeah, I think so. So I think in the meantime, people, if you haven't checked out the Dustin Bones documentary, Ayewis Life, a word I had to learn from meeting you. What does it mean again? AWEWIS?
Always.
Always. Okay. Yeah, okay. Always life. Ayewis life. Okay, beautiful. So thank you again, G. Thanks for everybody else for hanging out on this edition of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? Who is the next guest? Well, the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy. You'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.